Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. And dang it, folks, the DMing struggle continues. ICRPG played it the other day, and it was just subpar. I had another subpar performance. Started off badly because we hadn't played for a while. People had been on holiday, and I felt like I'd lost a bit of momentum. And not only had I lost momentum, I couldn't find some notes that I was convinced I'd made. We're playing what we're calling Harpy Heights, or I'm calling it that anyway. And I was convinced I'd fleshed this all out, and I remember doing it on the computer. And what I'd done is I'd done it in Google Keep and not put it onto my slides. But of course, I didn't think of that till it was too late. In the heat of the moment, you know how it is, you get a little bit kind of worked up and you're not thinking straight, and you want to get on. I'm thinking, I'll just improvise. But knowing that what I was looking at was like an earlier iteration of my idea, and I knew I had something better. It was just really hampering my style, and I didn't get into that flow with the ideas and the improvisation. What I should have done was really just abandon what I've got and just come up with something, like let go of it, rather than trying to kind of get in this kind of cyclical thinking, this loop, thinking, what have I done with it? So it was subpar. And what we're trying to do, the characters have crept up on this kind of colony of harpies, if you like, in this, up in these kind of these mountains, if you like. And the adventure site is set on different levels. There's like little plateaus, little outcrops of rock, and there's some caves. And these harpies have abducted the people of village below, and this is a rescue mission. But we're talking about some fairly big numbers, around 150 prisoners, captives, that the adventurers have decided they want to rescue. And they're not sure of the numbers of harpies, but there's rumoured upwards of 100. Now, I'm not going to talk figures in case someone's listening. I don't want to give the game away. But long story short, they've done this nighttime raid. The security is very lax, and I was rolling for them being discovered in their activities. But didn't happen. So the alarm wasn't sounded, and they've managed to, bit by bit, get these captives out. There wasn't a lot stopping them from leaving. Really, it's the fact that they do escape. Potentially, where are they going to go? The whole thing is complicated by kind of a hostage situation. The menfolk of the village have been drugged, and they're in a stupefied zombie state. And basically they're slowly being sacrificed in this kind of blood ritual that the characters have witnessed. It's a very nasty situation, and the women folk and the children are kind of a little bit pinned down. But there is a bunch of youths from the village that it seems they've been cooking up a plan, and as soon as the adventurers arrived on the scene, these guys kind of sprung into action. However, the problem is, I found the party were quite kind of keen, the players were quite keen to see what was going to unfold. And I'm thinking, well, these guys have got a plan. And the whole session ended up more or less a little bit more like a scene from a film, where the players almost become spectators. They're just there to assist, and they're more or less on standby. They did a bit of this and a bit of that, but I don't know. I feel like that's a trap you can fall into as a dungeon master. It's almost like having a whole load of DM PCs in the form of these villagers. I feel like I forgot some of my golden rules. I'm not sure I had enough danger there because the security was so lax. And playing ICRPG, if you're a fan of the game, you all know DEW, the Danger, Energy, Wonder mantra, and the timers, threats and treats. I had not really followed the advice, and I'd strayed from the path of excellent ICRPG sessions, and kind of I don't know, but how do you avoid these traps sometimes? I guess everybody has a subpar session, but just feel like I've been, I don't know, having a few more lately than I would ordinarily. I need to shake something up a little bit. The easy thing to do would just like pull the plug on it, and some would say perhaps that's the solution. I don't know. I've got games that I want to play, and I think I was listening to Seth Godin a while back, and he was talking about this idea of not giving up on something when you feel like you're at the bottom, to persevere, and then when you feel like you've got out of the pit and you're in ascendancy again, and you're feeling a bit better about something, maybe that's the time you can say, well, it's on the mend now. I've got over that dip, but do you know what? I think I'd like to do something else. And it's very different pulling out of something at that stage than when you're in the doldrums and you're kind of giving up on a problem having not really solved it. And the thing that is really true as well, sometimes when you feel like you're making no progress at all, that's when you're really learning the most. So I'm reluctant to chuck in the towel. I definitely want to get this storyline finished. There is quite a big development in the tale and what's going on. A couple of these young characters from the village vanished off up in the direction of where the harpies rest and kind of sleep overnight. And the characters don't really know what they were up to. I gave them quite a lot of opportunity to kind of inquire and find out. At the minute, they're in the escaped captives, and the characters have split into two groups. The kind of drugged up, zombified males with a few females, and the youths from the village, they are staying, they're kind of like dug in quite near this colony, and then the rest of the group have moved off down the mountainside, and the characters are not clear where they've gone. They know they're headed somewhere, and the villagers they've stayed with have given them all the assurances that that's fine, but there is a communication difficulty because they don't speak the same language. I'd sort of hope the players would do a bit more to kind of perhaps try and ask questions. I don't just want to keep feeding them ideas, but maybe a little bit of a low energy session. Players perhaps a little bit tired, a little bit stuck for ideas on what to do, or maybe just a kind of a badly designed or badly run session. I think I got the whole scale of it wrong. So the players are not really central to what's going on. So I need to change that up. I need to think about that. I mean, if anybody's done anything like this or got any suggestions, I'm all ears. I'm really getting into Forbidden Lands by Free League at the moment. Got to play again a couple of days ago. with Kev, the Dungeon Muser, on the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. So we played session 2. This session we had a couple of new players. With the new players came, of course, the chance to see some of the new rules, and one thing in particular, it's a simple thing. We had a hunter. One of the talents of the hunter is they have an animal companion. When you've got one rank in the talent, you can send your companion off, your animal companion, to go and do some scouting for you. It uses its own stats and performs a scouting function, and comes back and warns you if there's danger on the road ahead. And the way this is done is just you spend a willpower point. Super simple. Willpower is a currency that you gain when you attempt to do something and you fail. Basically, you push a roll, you have to push the roll and you fail. If you just fail without pushing the roll, that doesn't earn you the willpower, and there isn't really a penalty generally for failing. It's when you push it, that's when you take damage to your stats. You may get your gear damaged, and you get willpower. Now, willpower is what powers your talent. So this way of using the companion to go scouting is limited by the willpower. Now, we've probably all played in games where you get the ranger character that it's all about their animal companion, and it can just sort of get a bit tiring and a little bit tedious at times. I mean, if that's what you like, that's fine, but I don't know, it kind of can be a bit overdone, and there's not a great way to kind of rein it in a little bit. However, with this rule, it just seems perfect. It makes, because there's a cost, it makes it an interesting, meaningful decision. Are you going to spend your willpower to do that? And he's got a pet wolf that was really good, and he spent his willpower, and it did an amazing job of scouting. So it was, at the time, it was a really simple, a fleeting moment in the game, but for me, I just loved that simplicity, and it was really evocative, and it just sort of worked. And I'm finding that with Forbidden Lands, I'm seeing this oftentimes. It's time and time again, little rules and little things that I just think, that is so clever. I mean, I've only played 2 sessions. I'm wary of getting carried away too soon, but the first blush of love is in the air for me in this system. It's just too good. It's too good. However, personally, I don't think I played my best session. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but there was a bit of miscommunication part way through, and I ended up nearly vivisecting this guy, cutting a person up, more or less, like a fallen adversary, because I felt we was in quite a survival situation. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and I'd thought these adversaries were some kind of monster, but it turned out they were a lot more human than I had realised. I thought we was in a lot more of a perilous situation. So it kind of came across that I was kind of like being gratuitously ghoulish, as it were, and that wasn't my intention at all. And I don't know if it made some folk a little bit uncomfortable with my character's kind of detached attitude towards, well, basically butchering a guy, and I can fully understand that. But yeah, lessons have been learnt, shall we say. So really, just lately, my RPGing experience is been all about old Spike Pit learning lessons, and I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, it leaves me just wanting to play again as soon as possible. I've managed to get 11 experience points. The experience is another thing that I like. You just ask this set of questions. Have you done this in the session? Have you done that in the session? And if you can answer yes, you get a point. So you just go through this checklist. Typically, we seem to be getting about 5 or 6 experience per session. Maybe a bit less than that, actually. Maybe it's 4 to 5. That seems about average if you go for 4 hours and you're getting stuff done. I'm hoping, I think I need 18 experience to get up a rank in my magic. If you haven't got a tutor, it's triple. So it would go in from rank 1 to rank 2, would ordinarily be 6 experience with someone to teach you. With other talents and skills, you need to relate your advances to things you've done. So it's a little bit similar to Cthulhu in that way. You need a narrative reason for any advances that you're doing. I like that as well. And like I say, really enjoying this game and can't wait to get back into it. Unfortunately, this is a monthly session, but I will be playing some Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay again. And once again, with the muser himself, we're making up a character. So that's in a couple of days' time. I'm looking forward to that, and I'll let you know how I get on.
Hey Colin, Jason here. Great to hear you out there still doing your thing. I'm glad your summer's going well. That's awesome that your first year of teaching went great. I am very proud of you and, so and all that you were able to make that transition to that new career and you're happy. It's an inspiration. I'm not blowing, air up your skirt. I'm being serious. It really is an inspiration to us that, just because we're midlife doesn't means we can't change. So I really appreciate that. Keep up the great work, and I will talk to you soon.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Connolly. I'm not convinced I deserve your kind words, but I'll take it nonetheless. The teaching, as far as it goes, was a decision I didn't think too much about. I generally weigh things up quite a lot, but this just seemed like something I needed to do, and I just the opportunity was there, and I just piled in and got on with it. I'm happiest when I'm learning new stuff and trying new things. What better place is there for someone who likes learning new things than being around youngsters full of energy? There's always something going on. There's always something to learn. My only regret is I didn't do it sooner. I often turn to others for inspiration, and I lose count of the times I've seen or heard something and it's sparked off a whole load of thinking for me. And I guess our next caller, Carl, is talking about that in a way. He's talking about reading.
Hey Colin, good to hear you while catching up on your podcast. And yeah, I love how you talk about, other than the games, of course, great to play with you in Forbidden Lands and in Warhammer. Hopefully we'll get to do that more. But what I was really more inspired by is your reading list. I get on a roll and then I stop and I don't know how to get back into it. I very quickly read the first 2 books from Stephen King's Dark Tower series, Gunslinger and Drawing of the Three. I'm on to Wastelands, but I decided to take a pause and start reading another series. I don't remember the authors off the top of my head, but the book is called People of the Wolf, and it's a whole series. It's a husband and wife team, and they do a lot of I guess it's early human, so Paleolithic type writings, and they have people of the wolf, people of the water, people of fire, some stuff like that. And there's a cool chronology in their books, but I started reading it, and I guess there's a lot of dialogue that is not off-putting but hard to follow sometimes, but getting into the lore, right, of their universe. This is the first kind of book, so getting into the lore of the people of the wolf is a little challenging. And then of course I buy other things. I bought the Magos, which is by Dan Abnett, and it is a continuing story of the Eisenhorn saga, so Warhammer 40k, I guess, fiction. I want to jump into that because I love short stories, and then novellas, easier to read. And then I I was talking about Revelation Space on the Discord by Alistair Reynolds, and I picked up a copy of his short story collection. So maybe jumping back into short stories might be the way to go, but any pointers would be great. Thanks for the podcast. Bye.
Well, thanks for the message, Carl, and I'm glad you're enjoying the sections where I talk about what I'm reading. I enjoy my reading, and I get a lot of ideas and inspiration for my gaming and other aspects of my life from the books I read. And generally I'm enthusiastic about it, and I just like to talk about the stuff that I've found value in, and I'm passionate about and infused over, and hopefully the intention is that others may find some inspiration or some enthusiasm from my enthusiasm. Hopefully it is a little bit infectious. Now, talking about infectious enthusiasm, I thought, well, Carl asked about some recommendations, but he also mentioned Dan Abnett, and I was thinking, that name rings a bell. I had a little delve around on the bookshelf and realised that I've actually got a Dan Abnett book. It's from the Warhammer series, if you could call it a series, or the Warhammer line, I guess, product line. And it's a book that my buddy DM Ricky gave me. It's called Fell Cargo. And this is what it says on the back. So, long believed dead, pirate captain Luca Silvaro returns to reclaim his ship and embark on a deadly new mission. But the high seas are now more dangerous than ever, and the captain and his scurvy crew of rogues must face pirates, curses, sea monsters, and even worse foes. Can Silvaro and his allies track down the dread butcher ship and defeat her gruesome undead crew before they too are turned into mindless zombies? Top-selling Black Library author Dan Abnett takes to the high seas in this action-packed tale of adventure and dark sorcery. So he's well rated, Dan Abnett, and these are some words of praise from the RPG community. Dan Abnett just keeps getting better, RPG United. An explosive and hugely entertaining mix of dark fantasy, intrigue and gory action, SFX. So I thought, well, you know what? Carl has inspired me to pick up this book, and I'm actually going to give it a read. It seems perfect as well with the pirate theme. Sometimes I feel it's difficult to decide which is the best to go for, and the fiction can feel a little bit frivolous, and a bit like I struggle with gaming sometimes. I feel, pointy elf games, should I have not grown out of that sort of thing by now? And of course we all know that's utter nonsense. Some of the things it's doing for your brain in terms of helping you learn to visualize things and also to empathize. These are valuable life skills, and there's no need to neglect fiction and choose non-fiction in preference. I mean, perhaps if you specifically want to learn about a certain subject, and I do find myself doing that, but sometimes I'm picking non-fiction because I'm just curious about a subject, and maybe if that's a subject that I'm not really going to get into immediately, that might be the wrong choice. One of the things that is a little bit dismaying with reading is I'll read stuff and I'll learn about a subject, and then I'm not really putting the skills to use, whereas empathy and visualization and that type of thing, I am, particularly in my job, using that sort of thing all the time. So really, perhaps fiction is in fact, a lot of the time, the better choice. I hadn't really considered that before, but that's some food for thought. And I do like podcasting for this reason. It's part of my makeup. I think that externalizing helps me sort out some of my own thoughts. Getting them out there helps me organize my thinking. And I'm curious, I wonder how many podcasters are like that. If this is your chosen medium, do you find it easier to verbally organise your thoughts? And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks goes out to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.